Hello and welcome back to Raised by Giants, where we talk all things spirituality. I am Ryder Lee. Tonight we have with us Burch Driver. But before I introduce him, be sure to check out Honey Colony website for amazing products like Superior CBD, colloidal silver elixir and maker, energy supplements, health and beauty products, and a bunch of other really great ethically sourced products. And if you use promo code RBG10, you'll get 10% off your entire order. Check the links in the description. Also, another really great way to help support the channel is donate on PayPal or buy me a coffee. It is completely 100% optional, but very much appreciated. Check the links in the description for donation options. So we are here at the Forbidden Knowledge gathering. We had a really great weekend. This is the last day of it, and I'm here with Burch Driver. We've had really good conversations, and just kind of wanted to bring him on and get his perspective on things. We've talked about a lot here the past 3 days, and I think that it's good to get it out there more and get a recording. So give the audience a little bit of background on you and how you got started going down this journey.
So I had a lot of thoughts growing up. I was always kind of an outsider freak, in high school, and had an epiphany at 15 that made me think about things differently. Probably had something to do with the influence of my parents, hippies, and interested in kind of Eastern philosophy. So I come from that background, and I also come from recognizing at a young age that something is wrong. To me, it seemed like something is wrong, and so I felt like there was something that could be done, and so I've been kind of living a way to thing requires, even though I don't know what it is. But my podcast is called Green Knight Green, and I started it because I discovered Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, the myth, had some amazing messages in it, and so I wanted to go into that. But I also, I basically, episode 9 is where I discuss Green Knight, and I go over the myth and analyze it. But previous to that, I talk about all kinds of things, like how products change the way we think. Marshall McLuhan, the medium is the message. And my background in science and design, I feel like design is actually the way that we actually change the world. Because anything that we can to reality, and I think there's a possibility, a way to reorganize ourselves and to maximize our creativity, because I think that's what we're built to do. We're all built to use all of our faculties to make something, while we're here.
We started kind of talking about the 7 Hermetic Principles, and you studied that a lot. What can you tell us about Hermeticism and the 7 Hermetic Principles? Because I think it's very interesting and it's very important. And I kind of studied this early on in my spiritual awakening, and it made so much sense. So could you maybe give a review of the 7 Hermetic Principles for everyone that might be interested?
I got interested. I've been interested in all this stuff, but it's funny how information percolates in over a lifetime. I'm 51, and so I've been going after this pretty hard since right after high school. It's why I chose to major in physics. So it's my purpose at majoring in physics was to find out what humanity knew. And also I had a spiritual quest, and I had a feeling that there was some information involved with quantum mechanics that could inform those questions that I had. And so, speaking of quantum mechanics, the 7 principles, 5 of them, 5 out of the 7 are basically describe how waves operate, right? The properties of waves, and so quantum mechanics is basically describing a particle as a wave, so that's why I'm making that jump from that to the 7 Hermetic Principles, which is everything is vibration, right? Which is the principle of vibration. The principle of correspondence, right? Which is as above, so below. Waves have that property, right? Because scale invariance, right? Large waves exhibit the same properties as small, tight waves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so then you have as above, so below. The principle of correspondence is sustained by thinking of it as everything as waves, everything as frequency, everything is vibration, right? And so the next principle is the principle of polarity, right? And this is described by waves perfectly, because you can't have a crest of a wave, a peak of a wave without the trough. They come together.
This is what we've been
Yeah,
discussing
yes,
past 2 days.
and they define each other, right? And so all of these polar relationships that we look at, as a creature who's trying to figure out the world and is fixated on duality, I spent a lot of years thinking about it, duality, like, how do we figure this out? Like, there's some kind of crazy contradiction here. But duality is polarity, right? And so if you come at it from this more simplified way of thinking of it as like just waves, I think it's easier to grasp, So if you want to like have a comment on about polarity, we can go into the next couple after that.
Yeah, I've really been discovering and figuring out for myself is that we have to exist in this reality. We have to exist within the polarity. And that means that, we have to take the bad and the good all together and wrap it up, because that's the state of the reality that we're currently in.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of people that want to make this reality seem like that it's garbage and that it's shit and that we should hate it.
Try to escape it.
Yeah, trying to escape it. And I don't think that that's the way that it should be. I think it's acceptance. We need to accept that this reality is this way. And, that's just how it is. And bad things happen, good things happen. We're here for the experience. We're here to experience everything that this reality offers. And that's, that's pain, that's pleasure, that's hurt, that's the good. We can experience both extreme sides of it, because that's the dualistic and polarity of being in this physical 3D reality. And if you shift it all the way to one side, then okay, so everything, it's exactly what you're talking about. Everything is vibration. Everything is is vibrating at a certain point, and it takes that resistance to create something in this 3D physical reality. This microphone only exists here, and we're only speaking to it because it has negative and positive protons within it, and it's resisting each other. If you took out all the negative protons out of this microphone would no longer exist, right? So if I took all the negative protons out of this reality, then this reality no longer exists. Right?
It requires the dance, right? The dance of polarity, and nature does that like really well and keeps moving, and it always produces novel patterns despite repeating itself, right? Principle of rhythm, right? Cycles, right? But there's being inserted into unfolding of the universe, right? Because novelty happen, right? New things come into being. But about what you were saying about how we require this contrast, it's like, yeah, you can't or something, without having two things. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So but I think there's some the Hermetic Principles. When you were talking, it's like, yeah, I agree completely. But I think some people look at this information as it's like dark or used for bad intentions, and it just is a thing, right? It's really old knowledge, but it's possible to take this knowledge and kind of hijack it in a way because it works on us,
That's the problem that I'm having, is that in the proper way, and not like a self-defeating type of scenario, right? Where people just kind of, give up. Because whenever I'm trying to explain it, I don't know if I'm coming across in the right way, and it can be taken as a negative, and that's not what I'm trying to say at all. It's that we have to exist. I think the key is balance, right? You be in the center. It's like what we were talking about last night, the caduceus, the two polarities rolling up the center of the spinal column, right? Mm-hmm. You want to be the spinal column. You want to be in the middle, right? You want to be neutral.
Yes.
neutrality is where it's at, because you're not attached to anything.
Yeah.
You're not on one side, you're not on
the other.
Yeah, you're just boom, straight down the middle, and you can operate with both sides and not be attached to any certain outcome or any certain part of reality.
Yeah. I just wanted to address one thing you were talking about before, which was like this resistance, all of creation is like this substrate, right? And that when we take an action and we do something, we press on that substrate and create waves, like that resistance. The substrate is resisting your pressure, but you're putting pressure on it. And so it is actually the relationship between that actually creates waves. You know what I mean? I just thought that was a good way to explain it. But as far as what you were just talking about, which was it? What was it again?
That people they kind of want this reality where everything is like perfect and everything is like all love and light. And I don't think that that's the way that this reality is supposed to operate on a degree. Now we can be doing things much differently, and we can be doing things in a better way, right? But I don't think that it's possible to completely dissolve the polarity and duality that we are currently existing, being in a 3D body. Right now, we might be able to do that somewhere else, you know what I mean? Maybe in a different dimension or a higher level of reality, you might be able to dissolve the polarity, completely, or make it more dissolved, but not here. I don't think that it's possible to completely dissolve the polarity, because that's the way that the reality is kind of structured. I think that we come in here with certain, it's a criteria, it's a circumstance, right? And we have to abide by certain rules for being here, being in a 3D physical body. And being here is we're here for the experience, right? It's all about the experience and experiencing all the things that life has to offer. And if you don't have that opposition, you don't have that opposing force, then this 3D physical reality doesn't exist.
Yeah, there's no texture to it, right? There would be no waves in it, right? There would be no reference points, right?
Yeah.
But I think though that you're actually just describing the way that you do manage it. It's a crazy catch-22, right? So we have this polarity, but I think as consciousness here, part of our lesson is to learn to deal with that, and not be bipolar, basically, right? Manic, where you swing from one end of the spectrum to the other, you know what I mean? Between poles constantly and never in the center. And so when you were just describing, the idea is to be, on the staff, right? Which is what Walter Russell describes as the fulcrum. I mean, all of his writings say the Hermetic Principles, everything is waves, right? And so he basically says that as consciousness, we can see these undulations and these waves and these interactions and these relationships, right? But to navigate it properly, we don't fucking go and take a position, right? Like you were saying, right? We actually ride the in-between, right? And we don't, like I just said, you don't take a position and then the opposition, like as soon as you take a position, there's the opposite, right? That's what principle of cause and effect is, which is, number 4 or 5, right? That's the next one. So it's like, again, it's like you can have an identity, right? But as soon as you make that declaration, the opposite becomes true. It's like you're defined by the opposite, basically, in a way. And so you don't want to make these declarations. You don't want to take sides. You don't want to say this is me doing this, Like, so we've probably talked about flow state a little bit, but I think it's an easy way to describe how when we are at our best, right? When we're just fucking killing it, we're not really there, right? As soon as we start to fucking think about it and identify with what's happening, right? We fucking trip.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's it's a really hard and difficult concept to really grasp, and it's difficult this is just a kind of a new revelation for me as well, that You know, we're in this reality, and we have to make the best of it while we're here. And when we keep thinking about how negative everything is, and we keep talking about the corruption and you know how shitty everything is, we're constantly we're reinforcing that, and we're actually bringing that more into our reality instead of, you know, looking at this as a beautiful experience, right?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing to be in this 3D reality because we get to experience everything. We get to have these conflicts and work through them and rise above them. You know, that's what I think is so beautiful about being in a 3D physical reality, because I don't think that other densities or other levels of vibration are able to experience the things that we experience here in this 3D reality, right? They might be able to experience a form of it, but they can't experience the extremes of it.
Yeah.
They can't experience extreme pain. And it's not that you want to experience extreme pain, but if you can experience extreme joy and love and passion,
yeah,
then it's exactly like what you're talking about. Like you inadvertently create the opposite because you're taking a position on it.
Yeah.
So if you can experience extreme love and joy and happiness here, then you also have to experience pain and suffering, because that's the duality.
Yeah. And but so like that's what makes this difficult to come at, because we require the contrast, you know, in order to actually determine what is, you know, because in a continuous homogeneous fucking soup, everything is the same, you know, so we require that. However, like I think there's this you know, we all talk about the, you know, the phrase false dichotomy, right? And the Hegelian dialectic, right? It's like both mazes lead to the same cage, right? So it's like understanding how this works, right? Like these principles can permit like a setting up of a false dichotomy,
Yeah.
right? And so you create the enemy, right, in order to create the opposition to the enemy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I was talking about this with Andre on his show, and it's almost like this evil and good. Maybe evil is a construct, it's an invention on our part, right? And so actually resisting evil, right, the opposite of evil, actually perpetuates the cycle,
yeah.
which is the principle of rhythm. So on one hand, you'll be in a position of superiority, but then it'll cycle, and the other side will be in a position of superiority, right?
Yeah.
And so as human beings, we can recognize this, right, and remove ourselves from this. It's almost like we're playing a game on top of the game. It really is meta already. You know, we're playing with these rules that we made up, right? And so when I say all do-gooders are troublemakers like Alan Watts, this is how they've been set up. Evil made the first move, and now they're going to move against evil, right? And then the cycle continues. And so being good, quote good, actually is just perpetuating the system.
Yeah, you mentioned something earlier when we were talking outside, that the whole duality that's been and polarity that's been set up here is a false polarity and a false duality, and that's may not be our natural state.
Yeah, it's artificial.
That's something that came in and kind of hijacked the whole reality and turned it into this duality and polarity that we're currently
of
in.
Good and evil. It's like it's a false polarity, you know, because if you think about the creation of the universe, like, is that a polarity that is required to make the universe continually to move, you know, to unfold? It's not one of the polarities that makes the universe unfold. You know, it's like it's not there. This is something we created. And so the pattern that we create, we're running off of an artificial fucking polarity system. Still kind of operates on the same rules, right? So it's like our nature, the way we're supposed to operate, has been hijacked, you know. And that's what I think actually happened to us. This whole you're born into sin. Sin, actually, you were talking about etymology. It just means to be separate from, right? To be taken out of, right? Like sin samia, right? Without seeds, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like separating from God, right? To sin is like just to separate yourself from God. Or another way to look at it is from the rhythms of nature, you know? So like we separate ourselves from the rhythm of nature of living and dying, and created this new false construct of good and evil. And the pattern has been running off of those initial conditions ever since.
Yeah, I agree with you. That it's been it's a false dichotomy, and it's an illusion. It's an illusionary reality that we've been trapped in for a really long time. And I think that the solution is neutrality. I think that that's the state of nature, right?
Yeah.
No attachments, no thinking this way, not bringing your thoughts and ideas and beliefs and blanketing it over anything.
Yeah.
And I don't think that there really is any rules. It's all just, we're supposed to be neutral, and that's the way that I believe that if God exists, which who knows if God actually exists, especially the way that religion has propped up God, which I don't think that it's like that at all. But if God exists, then I would imagine that he would be neutral. He would be a neutral aspect. So if you want to get back to the God state, you would want to get into neutrality.
Yeah, you would want to not make it about, like, basically when you exist, God does not. And when you don't exist, God does. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's a simple way to put it. And so when one is trying to preserve their psychological sense of self, right, which is basically another way of saying ego, right? They're isolating and separating themselves from the whole, and then the relationship to the whole becomes something that it really isn't, because already you've decided you're separate.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get to the fifth Hermetic principle.
I mean, you were just talking about, and we skipped the first one, which is mentalism, which is basically, it discusses that the universe itself is aware, right? That the whole thing is mind, and it is aware of itself. It's present, but not omnipotent. Like, it can't take action. So, like, I think it's as a neutral aspect, that's it right there, right? It's aware. It's almost like everything that's happening is its own mind, and we are included in that,
Yeah.
And just on a side note, that same thing, if you take an image of the neural structure of the brain, right, the neural pattern, and then you look at the superclustering of galaxies, right? Same fucking pattern.
Yeah. Same with our pupils and our eyes.
Yeah.
As well.
And so it's like, we didn't want to skip over that one. It's probably pretty important.
Yeah,
And most people have a big trouble with it because, they want to, in the Christian or the religious traditions, they think of this entity that's separate, again, also from the creation, and so that's not what the principle of mentalism says. It says that everything is mind, right? And that's what the Gnostics said Jesus said, right? It's like, I am under every stone, I am under, I'm in every branch, it's like everywhere at all times. Yeah. And so then we are also the same, right? We are connected to the entirety.
Yeah, and that's an important aspect too, people think that they know that we're all connected to a certain degree, but I don't think they realize how deep that it actually goes, and that God is basically the duality that's within us to a certain degree. And then whenever you have God within you, then you also have to have the adversary, which would be the one that's been created, the devil or Satan. And it's it's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
They've just turned it in and given it different labels, and they've characterized it and put it into a different kind of category. But it's all explaining the exact same thing, and it's trying to let us know how reality works.
Yeah.
It's just people are taking it so literal, right? They take the stories and everything to be very, very literal when it's not literal at all.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like what you were just saying. It's almost the battle between the hemispheres. Like our society is left brain dominant and out of balance for sure.
Analytical.
Yeah. And which you could say that it's a battle between the higher self and the psychological sense of self, which is the ego, right? And so that is the actual conflict, right? Is that, are you an individual and you're going to take credit for what's happening, or are you the whole itself?
Yeah, absolutely. Did we get to the fifth one?
Well, the fifth is cause and effect, and that's an interesting one because you can get into the time with that one, like the retro causality. So cause and effect are actually a polar relationship too, right? Because you can't have one without the other. One defines the other. And so then at that point, it's like, is an effect not also a cause, right? So every cause creates an effect, which also has a cascading effect, right? But you can't, but also it's almost like the way alternating current, right? It just bounces back and forth in the electric wires. It's almost like the time wave also does that too, because if cause and effect are not separable, then it also is retrocausal, right? So that the effect actually causes the cause, because they are inseparable, they can't be separated. And so then you come into, it's like, this is what we were talking about last night. Does time really actually exist? I mean, all time exists forever, in the same moment. But when you start thinking about cause and effect, you want to go back to the original cause. Like, so the idea is that there is something, a beginning, a start, and that all things are determined from that point, which is hard determinism, right? Which is this philosophy that doesn't matter what we do, everything has already been determined from the first instant. And I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with it either.
There's something there's this Polish philosopher, I forget his name right now, but his main tagline was ever-present origin. And so what that means basically is when you go neutral, when you stop trying to identify yourself, right? When you let go and become nothing, then you can become aware of everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The world opens up to you on another level.
Yeah,
I've always had a problem and an issue with people saying that our life is all been planned out, and we have these contracts, and everything is all shaped and molded for us, and they could be right to a certain degree. Like some things might be planned that we need to experience here, but it's not super detailed like what people think that it is, because like I could do whatever I want to do right now. Does that mean that it's in my contract that I'm going to do it? I don't think so, because we're individuals here. We have an individual consciousness. We're not in a collective consciousness type state yet, right? And I could get up here, like I could get up and walk out right now. You know what I mean? Would that be in my, in my car? I could get naked. I could take my pants off right now, or I could walk out in the middle of the street and get hit by a car. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think that we have a lot of control over our reality, and there's people in the spiritual community that, and I think that that's kind of like an excuse for whenever bad things kind of happen, right? They're kind of, that's what they use to get over the bad things that's happening. And they'll be like, oh yeah, it's just in my contracts, I gotta go. You know what I mean?
Or why do bad things happen to good people? It's like, I'm angry at you, God, for doing that. And that's actually, it's a human measurement system. God is not human. Or the universe is not human, right? So we can't apply these measurements, right? And this is how we measure like what is meaningful to us, or what is good, or what is bad. And I don't know, man. It's a tricky one, but more about ever-present origin. The idea is basically you can rewrite all of the code back to the beginning by letting go. So when you were like actually in alignment, like what you're trying to create was always meant to be, like, but if not, like, if then I think we actually get into this loop. Like, it's almost like a failsafe that the universe has, that if you're going to try to divide consciousness, say you're divided from the whole, then it creates this fucking washer, right? the wheel of karma, right? You go around, right? And it does not allow it to fucking go out until it's resolved or destroyed, you know?
Yeah.
And I almost think that's why we're here. Like, I don't think that it's supposed to continue like this forever. We're actually supposed to figure it out, right? Either we annihilate ourselves, or we create this static fucking back, you know, blip pattern, like almost ping pong, which to me seems like that's what you know, the metaverse is like, trying to get us to live in this digital space. Is like a stasis, right?
Yeah.
So we don't want to live like that either. We don't want to annihilate ourselves. We don't want to be just in stasis, like there's no fucking movement, right? Universe is about movement. So if we're going to be aligned with the universe and kind of kick ourselves out of this Groundhog Day pattern, right, then that would be what the universe wants. It would create this novel civilization that actually figured it out, you know.
Absolutely.
It came back into the fold, so to speak.
Yeah, I agree. What is the sixth Hermetic principle?
That's the principle of rhythm. So that's an easy one. We've already kind of discussed it. Is that what comes around goes around, basically. The cycles, right? You know, just like day and night. The way the waves crashing on the beach, right? It has a rhythmic cycle. You know? And so thinking of it from superior virtue and inferior virtue, like you will be in a superior position, like the I Ching always talks about. I don't know if you ever toss the coins or do the I Ching. It's a divination technique from the Tao, where you throw, it's 64 hexagrams, right? And you throw 3 coins and they mean different things, and you draw the hexagram out, and then you flip, just like tarot, and you read the fucking thing. And they always talk about superior and inferior, right? And there's going to be
kind of like
cycle.
A rune, right?
Yeah.
Like people read runes.
Yeah, it's like runes. Yeah. But it's this Taoist, you know, 5,000-year-old technique. And it's pretty fascinating. I think you would dig it, actually, if you check it out.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that one. Let's get into what's the 7th one?
The principle of gender. Yeah.
Ooh, this is a good one.
Yeah.
Let's get into this one.
So, I mean, if you look around in nature, you see this, it's another polar relationship, right? So it's like in order for life to continue, we require this complementary combination of male and female, you know. And so if you look around everywhere, you see these male and female aspects throughout nature, you know, as above, so below. You can see these male and female aspects, right? And we look at it from a human standpoint, but we understand it as like, it's just like the increase or the moving forward of a species, you know. That's one way to look at it, but there's all these different ways. And if you think about it from a sacred geometry standpoint, which is where the Hermetic principles come from, is that, to me, and I think that a lot of people would agree with this, is that it's like pre-dynastic Egyptian, right? So it's the cosmology of the Egyptians, you know, before they fell down, got corrupted, or, you know, were destroyed in some way, and then other people found all their stuff and kind of pretended to be them. But anyway, their cosmology is that consciousness comes first, right? And it has this female and male aspect to it as one, dual as one. And the female is kind of the way we think of our right brain, right? Which is intuitive and open and nebulous, right? And the male side is like gonna define a location, right? Gonna measure something. And that's what it is. It's like the female is all of everything, the void, right? And the male, actually, the male aspect of consciousness drew the first circle and overlapped the next one, which is the Viscus Pisces or whatever. You know this symbol? It's like where the fish comes from, you know, the Pisces thing.
Oh, yeah.
And so if you continue to do that same process, you get the flower of life, you get the egg of life, and then the flower of life, right? You know this symbol?
Yeah, the flower of life, yeah.
Yeah.
I got it on my phone.
Yeah, and so all of the Platonic geometry can be built from the flower of life if you just expand it in 3 dimensions. So all geometry comes from this pattern. All of the constants, the phi ratio, everything is built into this flower of life. And so what I was getting at is that in the beginning, right, there's this trinity, right? There's the female, the male, which like makes the first measurement, and then the child is all of creation, you know.
Which would be God.
Yeah.
If you look at it like
Yeah.
that,
And so it's the three aspects of God all at once and everything. And, you know, the principle of gender can be an incendiary because people are so tied into their identity about this shit these days. You know, it's been really driven hard. But we all, like you were saying last night, we all have both aspects in us. And to be balanced, we need them both, right? We can't neglect one side or the other.
Yeah, they have to be running congruently within us. And Jay Widener actually explained this one really well to me, and I think I talked to you about it last night. That there are actually there's four genders. You know, you got your male, you got your female, then you got your female within the male, and then the male within the female.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really
and all of those things are in each person.
Yep.
Right? Because yeah, we have this energy body that it has a male shape, but there's the female one is like flipped around on the other side. They're both there, you know.
Yeah, I think that that's what where the great separation became, and I talked about this in my allegorical and symbolical nature of the Bible. Whenever we were brought into this dimension, we were separated, and we used to be one. We used to male and female.
Yeah.
We used to have them both running congruently, like together. And then whenever we got split apart into male and female, that's what created this duality that we're currently living in.
Yeah, and you know, I agree with that completely. But again, like it's like we have all of those to be in balance, right? We need to have both aspects active.
Absolutely. Let's chat a little bit about your podcast. So if people are interested, they can check it out. Talk to us about the Green Knight before I'll let you go here, Nick.
Yeah, check it out. It's like a book on tape. It's an exploration, so it's not a weekly content thing. It's more like for you to consume and to process and to come to terms with what I'm saying and see what you think about it. I just needed to get it out there, you know. And so I've basically done that. I think I'm going to continue on by doing interviews and other stuff. But I think it's what I'm trying to get at is like, is there something like that can be done? Nothing need be done, because actually I think that we're already perfect, you know. But I think that we can just flip a switch, right, and decide to run society in a different way, you know, and it would still be as beneficial. And maybe, I don't know, maybe the suffering actually or the trauma locks us in a way that makes it more difficult to learn, right? To learn. I think our nature actually is to learn, not just our bodies, but our souls, you know. Our nature is to learn. It's not to like be the last man standing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's definitely a better way to get through this reality. Is that's what you're so it's a whole story, right? And you listen to it from episode 1, and
yeah, and you can see me fucking figuring shit out too on the way. But I basically had the idea of what I thought I was trying to say. I could see it, right, but I didn't know what words to use yet, and so I just started to try to do it.
Yeah.
And you know, I think I got somewhere. But yeah, you can definitely see me like change my mind on a few things for sure, you know.
And that's important too, is to be able to observe something and take something on, and not as like not as fact, you know what I mean, and be able to be willing to change your mind when presented with new information.
Yeah.
And that's a problem that I believe that a lot of society has, is they get stuck on one thing, and no matter the opposing information, it doesn't matter to them, because they're locked into their core beliefs and their core ideas.
I mean, I think that's like, to use a big word, I guess, it's solipsism. Have you heard of this word? It's like basically that the truth cannot be known, and so to each his own. Like, you know, everyone has their own truth.
Absolutely. I've been saying that. Yeah.
And so I don't think that's necessary. I don't think that's true at all. Like that makes it so that we're all atomized and living in our own, kind of our own little truth universe, right? But then we tribe up, right? And then it becomes a popularity index, right? And so then your tribe is this, right? And like you were saying, everyone's locked in, and there's no nuance. There's no attempt to like try to understand information that probably, or like takes your belief and maybe threatens it a little bit.
Well, I think that would be the problem with the concept, like what you're talking about. It would be being willing to accept someone else's thoughts, ideas, and beliefs without it changing your viewpoint, or without changing the other person's viewpoint. Because I think that's what individuality would really be, is that we all have our different sets of viewpoints, our own sets of truth. You've been through your own experiences of your life. You're going to believe something different based off of this 3D reality and experiences that you've had. I've had something different in my life, and I'm going to have different beliefs based on the experiences that I've had in this 3D physical reality. So I think that the problem is trying to get everyone blanketed into believing the exact same thing when there isn't any one singular truth.
Yeah, I mean, we can't lock it down, but I think generalizing, I think we have a tendency to be hyper focused on the components and the details, and the little things. But I think zooming out, right, to see the general pattern, we can see there's like some kind of malaise, there's some kind of sickness, and I think we can all agree on that, like that shouldn't be something. And so is there something that we can do about that? Is it possible? And the weird thing about what you're saying, like the irony really is like that we all do fucking end up joining, like-minded. We join up with people that are like-minded. It's like an echo chamber, just supporting the same thing. And so my only thing is like, yeah, you can have your beliefs, and it's not a problem with me, but allow yourself to be open, right, to new information and to update.
Yeah, I feel like that's really what they're trying to do with a lot of the technology. They're trying to herd everybody into a certain area, a certain platform. You know what I mean? They're trying to kick people off of certain from using certain social medias and get them all to create this echo chamber of thoughts, ideas, and beliefs. And then at that point, you're only preaching to the same people in this big regurgitation. And
that group becomes then like, you can basically predict what a bunch of people are going to do because they all think the same way, So there's no, like, you can predict what they're going to do, and also maybe like, press their buttons in a way, get them to jump.
Absolutely. They've figured it out. Yeah. And, all right, Burch, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me. I really enjoyed the conversation. Where can people find your show if they would like to check your show out?
Yeah, just search for Green Knight, all one word, lowercase, and that's Knight with a KNIGHT, and it's on all of the the platforms. So you should just be able to search for that, or if you want to go to my website, which is greenknight.green, not .com, .green, and all of the websites are there, and I have some other things that you can take a look at.
Awesome. The links to Burch's information will be in the description of this video. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate you a lot. Please hit the thumbs up button to help the channel out in the YouTube algorithms. Share, subscribe, hit the bell icon as well for notifications. You can catch this episode and any of my other episodes on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and download them individually on Spreaker.com. Thank you all.
Thanks for having me.
Very much. And remember, we're not only in a spiritual war, but a war on humanity. Stay aware, stay alert, keep loving your heart for everyone. Stay safe out there. And remember, if you can see through the illusion, you're the solution. See you guys next time.